Right guys, so we'll be talking today with Pete about end feed and how it's going to attach onto our copper pipe. All available by Lawton tubes. So Pete, show us what have you got to do on end feed.
Okay, so as we mentioned in a previous video, whether you're soldering, pressing, compression, you've got to prep the pipe. So we're just going to chamfer it, deburr the end, and we're going to clean it.
Which one do you want to use, Teflon or?
Normally I would favour this one, so okay. Teflon strip, just to clean the outside of the pipe. Because we're using a fitting, even if the fitting's brand new, we've got to clean inside the fitting. So you can either roll your Teflon up to get inside the fitting, or they sell these, pop the end inside and just clean inside your fitting.
Now, unlike press, you haven't got a depth gauge to mark, do you? No.
No depth gauge.
No.
What we are going to do though is we're going to flux the pipe. So I've got a tub of flux here with a brush in the cap, and we're just going to add some onto the outside. Now,
can you put too much or too little on it?
You can put too much. You can also, some people will flux the inside of a fitting. The danger of that is, and I'll show you, if I put some flux inside that fitting,
yeah,
and then, I don't know if you can zoom in on this mark, but if we pop that on, when I take it off, you'll see some's gone inside the pipe. So that's the danger of fluxing the fitting when you put it on.
And that's a problem
because if you were using it on a gas run, you're not going to be able to flush that out. So it's going to stay in there and it's going to attack the copper. Obviously on a heating system, it would get flush, it would clean out, but you don't really want flux inside the pipe.
So as a general rule, don't flux the fitting.
As a general rule, we don't flux the fitting. And also what we do is when we do put it on, any flux that is on the outside, I would wipe that off with a rag. So I would get rid of that before I started to heat it up, because what will happen is if you heat that up with the flux on the outside, it's going to run down the pipe, and the solder, when you apply it, rather than just going in the fitting, it will follow that flux and it will run down the pipe. So
good tip.
Flux it, clean it, ready, and then we're going to heat it up. So let me just get that flux off my finger.
Okay.
I'll always prep my solder wire. I know it sounds silly, but I'll just bend the end like that, so when I'm ready to use it, it's a bit more accurate. So we'll turn our gas on. Okay, only 50mm pipe, so we don't need it too hot. And I'm just going to warm the fitting up.
Mm-hmm. Starts to smoke. Is that when you know it's ready?
Sometimes you can just touch your solder on. Now, my method is I'll touch it on one side, and normally the side that you're not going to see. So if the pipe's going to be facing that way, I'll touch it on this side. And then just enough, you'll see by capillary action, it runs around the fitting. If we can zoom in though on that, and you should be able to see on the inside of the fitting how it's run around between the pipe and the fitting.
So I noticed there, Pete, you only dabbed the lead-free in one place.
Yep.
Some people might do it in 2 or 3, is that?
Yeah, I mean, the most important thing about soldering is that it doesn't leak. So if you want to dab it in a couple of places, or if you want, some guys will just daub it all the way around.
Yeah.
Perfectly fine. For a neater joint, I find you just apply it in one spot and then it just fills in the gap. If it's a bigger fitting, you might need to touch it in different areas. If it's on a problematic job, let's say there has been water in the pipe, it's really hard to get to, you just want to make sure it doesn't leak, then just, you know, go for it.
Nothing worse than having to go back to it.
Yeah, exactly. Now, what I will say is, and I see a lot of people do this, once they've put their solder in, they'll immediately go with their flux brush onto a hot pipe and fitting. You should never do that. What you're doing there is you're cooling it down, and when you cool it down too fast, the solder can actually fracture and it won't make a good joint. So always let it cool down naturally. Once it's cooled down, then you can get your wet rag, wipe off any excess flux. Then you can get your steel wool. So we'll just wipe off the excess, get your steel wool, and then just clean up.
Get a bit of the carbon off.
Like that, and then we've got pretty decent looking solder joint.
Pretty cool.
What else do you want to say?
Green.
Yeah, lead free.
Right, but you can also get white.
You can get leaded solder, so you can't use leaded solder on potable water. So
why not?
because it's got lead in it and it mixes with your drinking water, wholesome water supply.
Yeah, it's basically poisonous, isn't it?
Argument could say, yeah, you can use it on gas, but there is actually, I don't know if it's an actual law, but you shouldn't contaminate your kit with leaded solder. So if you've got leaded solder in your bag, they class everything as being contaminated by it.
Right.
You shouldn't even take it into the customer's house. So to be safe, just use lead-free on everything.
So you use lead. It's slightly more expensive than leaded.
Slightly more expensive. It's not as forgiving as leaded. Leaded will always run nicer. You can get the pipe hotter than with lead-free, but it's the proper way to do it. So
Cool. And we can do in 500 gram reels or 250 gram reels, but in the main, most people buy 500 gram reels.
yeah,
Cool. And how much would that typically last, or is it depending on what
depends
you
how much you're soldering.
Because obviously you like bending more than you do soldering.
Yeah, if you're bending, if you're pressing. I mean, these days a lot of guys are pressing, so soldering is getting few and far between. So it will last you a good while.
Other question, gravity. What happens if you're trying to braze and this is upside down? So you're trying to put the fitting as it's coming down. Does it make any difference?
Some people will argue if you were soldering, whether you start at the top or the bottom, because some people will say heat rises, some people will say that the solder falls down. It's total personal preference, whatever works for you, whatever doesn't leak. Sockets, vertical sockets are the hardest thing to solder, and by hardest I mean without getting any runs, because obviously if you're soldering above head, there's a chance for it to run down, but just take your time, go slow, nice low heat, don't put too much solder in. If you are worried about, if you've got a lot of vertical to do and you're not the best at soldering sockets, I mentioned to you in an earlier video about forming a socket in the end of your pipe.
Yeah, swaging, yeah.
So we've got this on the chrome, which we can solder up now to show you. So the great thing about this is if we pop our pipe into this one, use this. So that's going to pop in from above. Get rid of the excess.
Do you have to heat it any longer for having it chrome on there or not?
No, you'll get the idea.
Same.
So imagining this being vertical, I'm going to heat it up. When we apply the solder, it's just going to fill in that trough, that socket that we've created, and there's really not much danger of it coming outside the fitting and running down. So a swage socket, a formed socket in your pipe, is a great way of doing a neat solder joint on a vertical. Just clean that up and show you. In my opinion, this is the nicest way of joining. So we've got a perfect vertical join there. No excess solder, no drips. And also it's a great way if you want to use chrome. If we solder like that and we come out of the floor, you can't see the joint, all you can see is the chrome, and you've joined on that to copper pipe.
So, last thing to talk about, you've either made a mistake or you need to sweat off the joint.
Yeah.
How do you do that? Is it literally in reverse of what you've just done?
Yeah, so you'll probably need a pair of grips, but gas bottle on. And we're going to start heating it up. Now what you're going to need to look for, you'll either see the solder will start spitting out, or you'll just see it change from its sort of dull grey to a shinier
turning into liquid
colour, and you'll feel it. So I've just noticed there the little bits came out, and then generally just twist it and pull it out.
Okay.
And then what I'll do is I'll carry on up to heat the end and just wipe off with my rag any excess, because what you tend to get is some bits forming kind of lumps. Get as much off as you can while it's hot, and then once that's cooled down, you can then, as if it was a brand new piece of copper, just clean the end.
Right.
And once you're satisfied that it's clean, it's ready to solder again.
on the tin solder. Is there such a thing as too much solder?
Yeah, I've been to, in fact, recently I posted on my Instagram, I had to sweat a joint off and there was a piece of solder that had dripped inside the fitting. It must have been about 6 inches long, just
Okay.
snots.
Oh, inside,
that
right.
was someone continually adding.
Yeah.
Whether it was a confidence thing, 'cause it's like with anything with soldering, the more you do it, the better you get. But if you can't, or you don't know what to look for and you think, oh, it's not gone yet, and you're still adding in, the only place it's going to go if it doesn't run outside of the pipe is inside the pipe.
Yeah.
So you do see that a lot of times. You'll go to a really old soldered joint and it'll have held water for 20 years, and then as soon as you touch it, it just comes off in your hand because it's not been soldered right. Normally that's when it's been cooled down prematurely with the flux.
Okay. Or a wet rag.
Or a wet rag, yep. But it's like I say, it's like with anything. The more you do it, the better you get at it, and it's a confidence thing as well. And people will always banter with you on site about getting leaks as a plumber, but everyone gets leaks. Everyone who solders will get leaks. So the most important thing is to get good enough that you can competently solder without getting the leaks. And then once you've mastered that and you're confident enough, then you can start trying to make it look good.
Everyone's going to have it. A joint, it just won't work.
Yeah.
Do you just keep persevering? Do you cut out the pipe, walk off, go and do something else, come back? What's the top tip on
normally when it's
something not going right?
Normally when a solder joint won't take, it's because there's water still in the pipe.
Right.
So there's a couple of methods that you can do with that. Get the end of a spray nozzle, any spray nozzle out of a bottle, put that in the pipe and you can spray any water out. Some people will dip a wet rag into it and pull the water out that way. You can get a fitting that goes into the pipe. You expand it till it blocks off the pipe. Old school, they used to stuff bread down the pipe. The bread would block the water, and then eventually when the water was back on, the bread would disintegrate.
Yeah.
So normally it's water in the pipe. Sometimes if you get the fitting too hot, the solder won't take. You've burnt off the flux. So it's a case of cooling it down, taking it apart. You'll have to clean it again and then go again when it's cooler. But again, it's all down to experience.
Someone else has done a joint. They came along and did a compression.
Yeah.
And then you want to use end feed. Could you do end feed straight on it, or do you advise cutting that bit of pipe off where the olive was?
You could. I mean, like that bit there, we've sweat off and cleaned it. You could definitely get an olive on that. So it would look better if you had a new bit of pipe, but no, there's nothing to stop you from putting a compression on there. I've actually seen people sweat or solder a compression fitting onto a pipe before.
Right.
Which isn't the done thing, but it you know, when you're out in the wild, it's some things that you can come across.
Soldering. So it's an end feed fitting with solder pre-put into it at the factory, into the fitting. Would you touch up and put a bit of solder on, or? Again,
that's a confidence thing. Personally, I've never used soldering fittings.
Right.
So the time that I did try them, I was tempted to add a bit.
Yeah.
But really, there is.
It's a visual thing, isn't it? Because you can't see that it's taken.
Yeah, it's a confidence thing, because the thing with the plumber is you don't want to be turning the water on and something leaking.
Yeah.
So you want to be confident that that solder fitting's got solder in it. And the way we're always taught is that you can see it around the edge of the fitting. So on a soldering, if you can't see it around the edge, a lot of guys would be tempted just to add a bit of their own.
Defeats the object of having a solder fitting. Cool. Okay, so there you go, guys. That, in a nutshell, is how you do soldering.
Any questions about soldering, drop us a comment and we'll try and answer them for you.
Proper in copper.